Awesome.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Those of you joining live, those of you watching the replay. Tonight's workshop is kind of a lengthy title. It's called Why Does My Stuff Come Up in My Relationship? And I have one of my good friends on. His name is Jay Bradley. He has over 16,000 followers on Instagram. He's the author of Live, Look, Feel. From numbing out his feelings, Jay now uses breathwork as his main tool to shatter through lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, and shame. Jay has piqued the interest of major news outlets, including ABC, Los Angeles Times, just to name a few. Jay, thanks so much for joining. I'm really happy to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
So
I'm happy to see you.
that's kind of the formal intro, Jay. But why don't you tell us just a little bit about
Yeah.
yourself? What do you do? Where are you from? The basics.
Yeah, well, I have a long, interesting history of hopping around from things, from thing to thing. But breathwork has been I've been dedicating my entire career to it for the last 8 years, for very good reason. I feel like it's been the thing that I was always looking for. I've been on I would say, the self-help sort of spiritual, emotional journey for at least 30 years. I remember at 20 years old, just starting to delve into interesting channeled books and just so curious about, because I didn't feel good. I was a depressed kid. I was bullied. I really struggled a lot with illness, and there was always this feeling that, oh God, I deserve to feel better, you know? So I started with the physical stuff, started as a fitness trainer, massage therapist, wellness coach, worked sort of the physical aspect first, but that whole time was sort of building, I guess, my emotional and spiritual depth. And I have come to realize that that is the core, right? That is the most important part of our life and our joy, our happiness, and our relationships. So yeah, it's nice to take all of that physical stuff and really, what I love about what I do now with breath work is it takes in the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. I was born in a small town in Canada, though, called Thunder Bay, and I now live in Palm Springs, California, for the last couple of years.
And we'll get into this in a little bit, Jay, but would you consider yourself kind of like an energy work? Is that kind of the field that you would kind of classify yourself in a little bit?
I would, and yet it's kind of funny to say that. I say I'm a breathwork teacher and healer, which, as a very practical person, kind of seems like, well, that's so strange. But what I've come to realize, and what I think is an important conversation, is we're all, all we are is energy. Uh, yeah, there's science showing this, right? So it's actually very scientific. And yeah, I would say I'm a breathwork teacher and healer.
Yeah, because the reason I bring that up is because I'm obviously a coach. That's sort of my main modality. But one of the things I was missing up until recently in working with you was the energy component. And we'll talk about this later, but that's just something that I feel like a lot of people miss, and we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, and
Yeah.
so the entire goal of today's session is essentially helping people have healthier relationships. And there's essentially two different types of people on the call and listening into the replay here. Number one is single. So those of us that are being proactive about dating, maybe we're dating now or we're looking to start dating eventually. Maybe we want a life partner. Maybe we don't want toxic relationships anymore. And then, of course, the second person on the call is those who are in relationships right now. So maybe they want less conflict, a deeper emotional connection, deeper intimacy, more fun, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the context for the conversation today. But I wanted to teach our audience, Jay, a couple of different core concepts. The first one starting with self-worth. So I'm just wondering if you could kind of talk about self-worth a little bit, maybe define it, and maybe talk about where you were before, where you are now, how did you get there, that kind of thing. Maybe what do you see with your clients in terms of self-worth and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I always say we teach what we most need to learn. And self-worth, self-value, that's been my biggest challenge, and I think that's the key component I see in everybody I work with is regardless of success, regardless of where they're at, there's a component of not really owning their value, not really owning their power. And so I think it all comes down to this thing that somehow we think we're not lovable. Right? It makes me want to cry. I don't know why I get so emotional, but it's like somewhere deep down, so many of us have that feeling that I'm just not lovable. If this person finds out about this, and this, oh God, if I share that with them, no way that I'm lovable. And when we can truly step into self-esteem, to self-love, to self-acceptance, which by the way isn't always this bright and shiny, like, oh my God, I'm so great. It's more of a quiet voice of, you know what, I'm good. Like I love and accept all parts, those dark parts, the shameful parts. It's not like they're just gonna go away. It's more about stepping into ownership of all parts of us. And I think the struggle, so many of us don't want to own that shadow part. We don't want to look at the darkness, right? We kind of just push it off to the side. And I think what I love and what I see with people I work with and the journey I've been on is like going face to face with we'll say demons, such a big word, right? Like we can't go around it anymore, especially if we're attracting toxic relationships and we're not having success in love and intimacy. We got to go right in. We got to go through it. And I think that's why I love breathwork so much. It's, you know, the way I direct the sessions is like, let's go there. It's okay. You're safe. You're protected. I'm supporting you. Let's go there and see what this has to say. And often what we find out is that the whole I'm not worthy is really just an illusion, because in spiritual context, we're always connected to a divine source, whatever that is for you. And we just forget. We just forget because of our parents and our childhood and all the crap that we've been through. We just forget. And we believe the story. So yeah, I just like to tell a new story, right? I want to show people and remind people that you are beautiful and perfect just the way you are.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, so
yeah, that's
almost
been my journey, Andrew.
yeah, yeah. No, me too. And it almost sounds like, yeah, 'cause to me, it kind of sounds like, okay, yeah, it comes to the core of feeling like you're unlovable. And frankly, I felt that too. I've spoken with Byron Katie about it,
Yeah.
renowned spiritual teacher, and that's what we came to is I felt unlovable. And it almost sounds like the self-worth is the opposite of being unlovable, and then also integrating all those different parts of ourselves. Is that kind of what you would say?
Yes.
Yeah. And the other
Yeah.
thing I would say too, I was debating how vulnerable I wanted to get on this call too,
Yeah.
but I will share that one time I was doing a breathwork session with you, it was virtual, and I think it was a replay. I don't think it was live, but it was like an energy release, and I didn't really expect it to go there, but I like released all this energy, and it was about like I don't even remember, but it was about my dad. And my dad left when I was 2, and you better believe that affects the way I relate to people and my relationships. And like I don't even remember, but the energy came out. I was crying, letting noise out, and it was very strange, but it definitely was healing. And that's just something I remember. So very strange.
I love that. And thank you for sharing. And as you know, breathwork can catch you off guard and take you to places you didn't really expect. And that was just perfect for you. And I'm sure that was really, really shifting in your energy, right?
But yeah, and I agree. Like we have to go there kind of to be strong. And we'll talk about this further, but yeah. The other thing I
Yeah,
want to talk.
oh
Go
yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to also say, I allowed people to take my power away. Right, as kids, we don't know any better. I was bullied, I was beat up, I was made fun of as a gay kid growing up in small town Canada. And I didn't have the self-esteem or power to stand up for myself, and so I allowed others to take away my worth. So that's the beauty of that, is we get to also learn how to take it back as we get
Yeah,
older.
yeah, true. And then this kind of leads into my next topic. I wanted to talk about working through emotions. I'm just wondering if you can, because I feel like for some people, number one, we don't even think about it, but it is so complex. I'm just wondering if you could talk about that emotions are energy. They do sit in our body. They do hold us back if we don't feel and release them. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of feeling into our emotions?
Yes, absolutely. So my belief, having done this work for so long, is everything is energy. It all starts with energy. I talk a lot about the chakras and where it's stuck in our body, and I say stuck because I think that's what happens. We store up uh, stuck emotion, stress, all sorts of maybe toxic emotions, and and uh, and they sit energetically. Everything is energy. And if you've read the book by Mark Woolen, It Didn't Start With You, he even suggests that we go up to 3 generations of like ancestral trauma that's also stored in our DNA. So like you think we don't have it hard enough trying to deal with our own issues, but we're also passed on some of this trauma. But the beauty is, I've seen it over and over and over again that we can get in touch with this energy. And this is kind of like somatic work. Probably a lot of you have heard of this somatic breath work and somatic work. And it's really just acknowledging, okay, there's something going on here. And the beauty of breath work, as you know, Andrew, is as you're breathing you will get a sign like you did probably with your dad. I bet you felt that somewhere in your body. You'll notice a restriction, a tension, maybe a heaviness or a pain even, or something will go on in your body. The beauty of doing a one-on-one with breath work is we're able to go there, tune in, and then, as I think we've done with you, we get to put a shape, a color. We get to talk to this energy because guess what? It has a personality of its own. And sometimes it takes over our whole energy system. So we go in and we ask questions and we acknowledge that this has its own identity. When did you show up into Andrew's body? What's your job? And I'll have my clients answer. Often the job is I'm here to protect him or her. Okay. And, when did you show up? What happened at that age that when you showed up, right? Because something usually traumatic happened where this energy dropped in. Did you come from someone in their family where you passed on? It's amazing what breath can do. Why I love it is that like it cuts through the shit and makes you an open channel. So you really get amazing downloads and clarity. So we're able to have this conversation with the energy. And then what we like to do with energy is just ask for some permission. Like, would you be open to leaving and making space inside of Andrew's system so he can experience what it's like to be without you? Sometimes this energy can be difficult and challenging and it wants to stay stuck. But with some negotiation, we can usually clear this energy. And I know, for some people it might sound crazy, like you're talking to, colors and shapes and sizes and energy. But I've seen permanent shifts with this work in people in one session, just by acknowledging, wow, this is why it's here. This is who it's from. It's not mine to begin with. And I think that's the key. I'm going to let it go and clear it. And we're going to bring in some new energy and some new light into the space where it was. So like that's kind of the process that one of these sessions can take. Does that kind of answer? Because I think that's where we were going with the energy.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And frankly, I've done this a lot with you, but I never really understood the process, and now I do. It sounds like obviously it starts with breathing if we're doing breath work. It sounds like acknowledging it. Obviously, we can imagine the shape of the energy and maybe give it some color and so forth, some texture, asking it questions. And that this is frankly what a lot of people miss, Jay, in my opinion. And whether it's you're being reactive in your relationship, maybe you're feeling frustrated, or you're not even speaking up, whatever it is. I mean, that's energy too. Or for those that are dating, maybe we're in toxic relationships because I feel like we're not addressing that energy. And so that's really what I wanted to get at with this question. So yeah, definitely.
Yes, I love that because it's the unconscious, all this stuff we're not aware of. That's what keeps mirroring the same people back to us from the toxicity.
And that
And
and that's what I struggle with, Jay, because even so obviously I'm a relationship coach, and I can help people in two ways. For those that are single and want to date higher value people, I mean, the energy needs to match. We can't just put you in proximity with high value people. Like you're just gonna go back to how it was if you have shame and stuff. And then same thing within your relationship. If you want to upgrade your relationship, it needs to match. Otherwise, I don't know. So the energy needs to match it. That's why I really wanted to talk to you today. So
yeah, no, I'm excited, and I'm in the midst of. I was single for 25 years, so you might think, well, what are you doing here talking about relationships? But for the last over a year now, I've been in a committed, a really beautiful relationship. So I know for a fact it was all of that work I did along the way, the releasing, and also just acknowledging, and learning to love and nurture myself more, and recognizing the toxic patterns of the men that I attracted. So it doesn't matter whether you date men, women, you're right. The patterns are the same.
mhm.
And so when we can just understand that, and we'll talk probably more about boundaries, but boundaries is huge, right? Why are we putting up with shitty behavior? Why are we putting up with shitty treatment? That's a whole nother topic.
And for those that are dating, Jay, so obviously we want to work on ourselves, make sure our energy is sort of increasing, like our self-worth, so to speak. But
Yeah.
do you also, like personally, do you like manifest too? Do you think of your ideal partner, or do you just kind of focus on yourself? I'm kind of just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I so many years of trying to manifest. So I might not be the right guy to ask. The person I'm with is completely different than I ever wanted to manifest. So it's like, okay, the universe has a sense of humor, A. maybe what I thought I wanted wasn't at all what, you know, was meant for me. Or maybe that person is coming after this person, right? Like, I don't really know, but all I know is I was missing out because I missed out a lot. I missed out on a lot of probably really good people because of this perfect image in my mind. So this is a good conversation to have too. We, you know, I think it's healthy. I think it's great to make lists. God knows I did all the lists. I buried them. I burned them. Right? We've all done those workshops. But boy, I think it's also really good to just let that go and just see what's in front of you and who's in front of you and use it as an experiment. Like, maybe they don't look like what I thought, right? Maybe love is available in different forms.
Maybe that's not my only type, you know?
I mean, seriously, if I told you the contrast of who I had in mind and who I'm with, it's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I've noticed that trend too. Yeah. Okay, thank you. The other topic I wanted to talk about, Jay, is inner child. So some of us on the call, we are familiar with this term, others are not. So could you just kind of define what is inner child? How do we work with it? Is it the same as kind of working with the other emotions? I'll just pause there.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I love inner child work. I think it's been the core of some of the work that I do because I also believe that a lot of stuff comes from our childhood stuff, right? Old stories, old beliefs, things we pick up from our parents. I always say like 4 to 8 years old, but could obviously be younger. Those are the numbers I like to use for 4 to 8, like really significant. So I also believe that this kid is always with us. And when we neglect that kid, when we don't, you know, give that kid what it needs, we start to react, we start to pout, we start to get frustrated and angry. So I'm a big believer in reconnecting because that kid had a lot of hopes and a lot of dreams, and actually was probably more connected to, you know, universal energy than we are as adults, right? So so inner child work is simply reconnecting, and giving love, giving forgiveness, giving compassion to that kid. Probably some things that kid didn't get. I know I didn't, right? My parents did the best they could, but I didn't get any love. I didn't get any touch. You certainly know I love yous. So I was kind of forced to fend for myself. Uh, and so reconnecting with my little boy has taught me to also learn to trust. Like, I got you, the adult, right? I got you. You can trust me. I'm protecting you now. You're safe. So it's really just almost merging those two parts of ourselves. And there's different ways to do this. Inner child work, I love to use Ho'oponopono with breath work. It's a Hawaiian, if any of you know it, it's a Hawaiian forgiveness practice. And I love when clients can bring in a picture of them as a little boy or little girl. We bring that into the session because everything has energy. And at the end, will have them close their eyes and see that kid in front of them and just repeat out loud, like, I love you. I love you, Jay. I love you so much. I'm so sorry. And then just listing, like, I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you. I'm sorry, you know, you were hurting as a kid. Whatever you want to say to your little boy or girl. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for not knowing what you needed. Forgive me for not taking care of you. And then thank you. And you can list thank yous, like, thank you for hanging in there with me. I know it hasn't been easy. Thank you for being such a light in this world. Because that kid was a real light, and it got dimmed along the way. So I love having this literal conversation out loud to the inner child after breath work when your heart is really open. It gets a lot of tears, a lot of emotion for people, but it's super healing.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Jay, because I feel like if we don't sort of reparent ourselves, we do end up seeking that in relationships, you know? And so I feel like
Yes.
that's why it's really important. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Oh
Um,
man, that's what they say, right? We always attract, yeah, our mom or our dad and the same patterns. And oh God,
and it's the same. I see it this it doesn't matter if
yeah.
my client is single or in the relationship and they don't have boundaries and they're not speaking up. You know what I mean? And so anyway. The other
Yeah.
thing
And by the way, I think I think we can still have healthy relationships even if we have attracted our parent. You know, it doesn't mean like, oh God, I got to break up with this person. I think we can heal through relationships, right?
Mhm.
That's what they're for. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But like, that's why we have relationships to learn to expand and to make us vulnerable. And they're messy sometimes. God, they're painful, but they also bring so much joy. It's like, oh God. So maybe we have attracted our parent, but I think we can use that to really heal a lot if we are open enough to communicate.
The other thing that I have a beef with, this is going to sound funny, but with society, I feel like we're not always able to be authentic. And so, what I love about breath work is that is where you have the space. And because sometimes a child wants to throw a tantrum, right? And I'm being very
Yeah.
literal. Like
Yeah.
I've had calls with you, breathwork sessions, and you're like, okay, throw a tantrum, curse at the pillow, yell, use the F word, like hit your hands on the ground, laugh, and
Yes. No, for sure. For sure. You get to just be free and just fucking let loose. I mean, there's shit that comes out of my mouth when I'm doing breath work, but it's so friggin' awesome because, yeah, that's the thing. That's why I love to work with people who are just willing to go there and just trust the process. And, you know, a
yeah,
tantrum is a good word.
I just feel like I love tantrums. I just feel like I would rather you have a tantrum in your room by yourself listening to a guy doing breath work than like in your relationship or doing some stupid shit. You know what I mean? And I just feel
Yes.
like a lot of power comes from releasing all that stuff. So then you're left with your authentic self. Otherwise, you're just being reactive. So that's what I
That
love.
happened to me the other day. I was having some challenges with the guy that I'm dating, just closing off the heart, feeling resentful, the stuff that happens. I did some breath work for myself because that's how I take care of myself.
Mhm.
Sent some Ho'oponopono to him. And oh my God, immediately got a message from him with all this love and I'm so sorry. And it reminds us of what it's like to be more in love than fear. And that's what I love about it. Because honestly, love is, our truthful emotion. Fear is just stuff we've made up, the illusion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna kind of shift a little bit and I'm gonna give you two sort of scenarios, Jay, like some sample clients, and I want you to kind of just narrate for us what's going on in your mind when I read these clients to you, because I want our audience to kind of start to hear how you think, and then they can start to kind of adopt it if it makes sense for them. So
No
the
pressure.
first
No
client that
pressure.
comes to you, what's that, Jay?
No pressure at all.
No pressure.
Okay.
And action.
Yeah,
So
you.
so let's just talk about like a single guy for a second. He starts, he's wanting to date a high value guy or girl, and he's in search of a life partner, and he has a history of toxic relationships. Like, what comes to mind for you with that, for a guy that wants to start dating a high value person, has some history of dating toxic people, maybe there was past cheating on the partner's part or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, what I usually start with everybody is, well, first of all, I want to know about his upbringing. I want to know about
Wow.
his parents and his relationship with his parents, because God
Wow.
knows that's probably the biggest part. And that's going to tell me a lot. And then what his childhood was like. I just want to know those things. So I always like to go there. Because what I'm looking for in that is, where you're not valuing yourself enough. Why are you allowing toxic relationships in, and why are you, feeling like that's as good as it gets? It's a really important theme, right? What part of you doesn't feel like you deserve to be fully loved and seen and accepted and supported and nurtured and all those beautiful things that we all want? What is it that but it all comes down to, I think, how he views himself. So reconnecting him with himself, probably some inner child work, but really, really, where do you not love and accept yourself, right? Where do you feel you're unlovable? And let's look at that and
Wow.
work through some of those layers,
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. It's kind of like
because everything is a
locating.
mirror, right?
Yeah, everything
That's
is a
right.
mirror. Everything is a
Yeah.
mirror.
So there's part of us that is feeling unworthy of getting that. We say we want it, but we're getting something else. And so it's
Yeah,
just
we
being
say.
really truthful, really, really truthful, the hard truth, taking responsibility as well.
Yeah.
And then I would work with them about really catching those patterns along the way. The signs are there. We see them in the first or second date often. I got goosebumps my whole body. And the more aware we are, the quicker we see it. And then we're like, no. Like, again, it's not about writing people off necessarily, but if they're going to be sarcastic or a little bit rude or do little jabs, for example, for me, I've had people on a first or second date start to do that. And it's like, no, I'm out.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
way too early for you to be like jabbing me. I want love, support, compliments, affirmation. I know what I need and what I deserve. But it took me a long time to get there. And so I think the more we're aware of this, the more we're going to catch those signs really early and not let the relationship go further.
yeah, yeah. And some of the key sentences that stuck out to me is you said like, why are you not valuing yourself? And why do you think that's as good as it gets? That's crazy. Yeah,
Whew.
yeah. And then, okay, so I have a second scenario for you, Jay. So this is now a married person. So maybe
Okay.
it's a married guy and he feels like his wife gets overwhelmed easily. She crosses his boundaries. She says he doesn't make sacrifices. He doesn't even have time to focus on himself, his hobbies, that kind of thing. So what comes to mind for you with that kind of client? Is it similar?
Well, the word boundaries come up, right? So um, I don't know what his relationship has been like, but where does he not feel lovable enough to speak up and say, this is what I need, this is what I want? Uh, I think a lot of us in relationships have fear of really sharing our truth because they're going to leave us. So, and then we let people slowly take advantage and walk over us. We kind of forget who we are. So it sounds like he's forgetting who he is, first of all. So with him, what is your truth? And certainly in breathwork, I would have him yell out to his wife, like, the truth. She's not here. What do you really want to say to your wife or your mom or your dad? In this scenario, what do you really want to say to your wife? And sometimes it's like, fuck you, or you're not listening to me, you're not here for me. Just really expressing the truth, even if it's just in a private session, and then figure out what he wants. Like if the wife's saying you don't have hobbies, you don't have, well, maybe there's some truth there. At what part? Why have you forgotten who you are in this couple relationship, and how can you redevelop your sense of self through your own, outside of the relationship? Because that whole saying, right? Two halves. We don't want half and half making a whole. We want two wholes coming together. So start developing yourself. You can do it within a relationship. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's because you said forgetting who you are and also expressing truth. I love that. But with the forgetting who you are, that's interesting because I was talking to someone else who said the same thing. Like we have to know who we are, and this is where I start with people too. I go to our values because it's my kind of coaching perspective. I start off
Yeah.
with our values and maybe our own life goals, that kind of thing. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Values are so important. It's the
Yeah,
core of who we are.
yeah. Let's see here, Jay. So we're going to shift a little bit, and I wanted to hear sort of your top five. You can answer this in two ways. You can answer it as like what you recommend for people or
Mhm.
your own. So your top five favorite healing practices or modalities.
Okay. Wow. Well, breath work. Number one. And that's just been the most powerful and the most permanent and the quickest for me to
Yeah.
move through shit. Uh, I love theta healing. And if you've never heard of it, it's pretty amazing because I feel like breathwork's very masculine in some ways. It's very like, I'm going to lay down and breathe and it takes some work. Theta, you get into meditation and you allow other people to clear some of these energy and ties. And it's also very, very powerful. So if you haven't looked into that, I love EFT or tapping, emotional freedom technique. If you haven't heard of that, it's tapping on your acupuncture points with affirmations. Yeah. And like clearing the negative first and then bringing in some positive. It's also quick and it works really, really well. Uh, I'm a Reiki master and I studied healing touch. So I think it's a nice, subtle, yet super powerful modality, just like allowing yourself to receive some powerful energy through the hands is beautiful, a beautiful way to shift things on an energetic level. I also love massage for myself because I say the issues are in the tissues. So believe it or not, massage, if you're breathing, if you're engaged, if you're allowing, you can move through a lot of emotion just through receiving a deep tissue massage. So those are some of my favorites. I mean, for my own spiritual practice, for over 30 years, I've been journaling every morning. That's just part of my practice every single morning, processing, letting go what's in my head, writing it out. Um, I do meditate off and on. I've been better lately. It's really hard, but that's also my practice. And just reading uplifting material every day for me. Like, I need to stay connected or I lose it. You don't just get there and you're like, oh, I'm here. I feel great all the time. It takes like constant plugging in to the recharging
Yeah,
battery.
it's kind of like eating a little bit, right, Jay? You would say like, you're fueling your body. It's kind of the same thing, just your psyche a little bit.
Yeah, we got to stay charged in. Otherwise, we get very depleted. And I
Mhm.
like to say that can change. I think the more work we do, like I breathe once a week, maybe now to maintain my state. Before I did it every day for months and months. I think, the more work you do, maybe you can stay there a little longer, but we always need to charge.
Yeah. Okay, I'll share my top five, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping that those listening and watching the replay are jotting these down. And we actually have similar ones. So my number one is coaching. I really like how someone can coach from a different perspective because they're not tied to your bias and fears and so forth. And I feel like questions are very helpful. Breath work is also my favorite because it goes there. Therapy, I like therapy. I think it's a good place to start. Journaling, I think, is really great too. I think there's lots of different things we can do with journaling. And then same as you, I'm a huge fan of tapping or some sort of movement, stretching or something. Yeah.
Love that. I love that.
Okay. So we're going to move into our last topic of breathwork, which we kind of already talked about, but we'll move into this. And as we're kind of shifting for those listening on the call live, we have a small group. So at the end, I kind of want you to think about what questions do you want to ask Jay, okay? If you have any. If you're dating, is there any insecurities that are coming up for you that you want Jay's perspective on? I think we'll have a couple minutes here at the end. So as we kind of talk about breath work, you guys can kind of brainstorm a little bit. So we talked about breath work really quick, Jay, but can you kind of just again refresh what is it? Are we sitting, crisscross applesauce breathing or like what is that?
Well, breathwork is a term based on pranayama, which is thousands of years old, and there's so many styles. Like, there are literally hundreds of styles. So it could be various things. The style that I teach, and I know you studied and you do and you offer, is the 3-part circular breath or conscious connected breathing. And that particular breath is in and out of the mouth. First inhale is in the belly, second inhale in the chest, and out. So it's in the belly, chest, and out. And we're lying flat on our back, actually, because you can get really lightheaded doing this. I usually suggest doing it 24 to 28 minutes to music. The music is great because it just takes you away and you kind of stop, you can go on a little journey. Uh, this constant movement, this constant breath does, as you know, magical things. It opens up the channels. It connects you with where you're blocked. And what I love about the belly and the heart breath is if you're talking chakras, which are energy points in the body, it opens up and accesses those lower chakras, the root, the sacral, the solar plexus. And then it also helps to access the heart, throat, third eye, and crown. And again, all the chakras are energy points where we might be holding stuck energy.
Mhm.
So this is the process, along the way with breath work. Of course, as you know, we can let out sound. I love like just letting out whatever needs to come out, whether it's a yell or some cursing or some laughing. And and then just a little time to relax after. I do, as you know, a guided meditation or something after, take you on a little journey, because once you've done that breath work, you're an open channel to receive.
Mm,
And so the beauty is whatever you feed in there really sinks in almost to the cellular level.
yeah.
So you can do it at home on your own, pick 5 or 6 of your favorite songs and just try this breath. Probably good to say, if you are going to try it at home without somebody guiding you, that you might get numbness and tingling in your hands and your feet. It's called tetany, sometimes even in your mouth. Your hands might go like claws. It's super freaky for those people who are new to it. It's normal, and everything comes back once you relax the breath. But just in case you're trying it at home, probably good to be guided by somebody initially, just to experience it, because it can be pretty powerful.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Like one of the two things that surprised me about breathwork, number one, is like at the end of it, you're like, what the hell just happened? You know, you weren't expecting that for most people at least. And then it also it does take work because like I mean, most people don't breathe like that, and you're using your diaphragm, and it feels like you're working out a little bit in the beginning.
It does.
Yeah,
I call it spiritual CrossFit.
spiritual CrossFit.
It's a
Yeah.
workout, but it takes you to a place, for your emotions and your spirit that you can't get to through day-to-day breathing.
And so you talked about, somebody can listen to music and try breathing on their own. If
Yeah.
they do want guidance, Jay, do you have, something that you would recommend for them on your website, whether it's a free
Yeah.
download or I think you have monthly memberships now if someone wants to just try it and get started?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have a free download that's easy to access on my website, which we can share, I guess.
Okay.
And it's an audio, just something that you can try at home. I think it has some Ho'oponopono with it, which is kind of just like self-love and forgiveness at the end, just reconnecting with yourself. I think that, yeah, the membership is great because like anything, one time can and will change your life. I really believe, but doing it regularly, even if it's, once every week or two, will help you to unfold and peel back those layers. So, I mean, I love my membership because it has over
Yeah.
40 classes recorded that you can do at your own leisure, and you can pick themes and topics that kind of resonate with what you're going through. And that's, yeah, it's like $39 a month. It's like a Netflix membership.
The last thing I'll
Unlimited.
say, the last thing I'll
Yeah.
say about that's been powerful for me, and I'm sure for other people, is like, let's say I'm frustrated or sad, or I just went on a date or something like that. I mean, most people, what are they going to do? They're going to grab their phone, they're going to go on Instagram, or they're going to do something
Drink or something.
numbing, or you just breathe, just put on the headphones and just breathe. And so I love having that alternative there. And it's obviously a lot more beneficial.
I'm glad you said that. It's usually when we need it the most that we don't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
It's the resistance, like workouts. It's like anything. I
Yeah.
still feel resistance, like, oh God, I gotta lay down
Yeah.
and breathe today. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like always a joyful thing, but once you do it, once you get in, it's like, oh, thank God I did that. I'm a completely different person now.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to kind of move into our closing, and then I'll turn off the recording and see if anybody on the call has any comments or questions. But kind of the last thing here for the recording is, how can people connect with you, Jay? Do you recommend your website or your Instagram? What's kind of the best?
Yeah, I kind of use Instagram as my main source of social media. It's Breathe On It with J, BreatheOn with JAY. The website is also good just for you to check out, and read a little bit and see some of the videos. That's breatheonit.net.
Do you have any final words of wisdom, Jay, for those that are creating a healthy relationship? They want deeper connection. Maybe they're single or they're in a relationship right now. Any final words from Jay?
Ooh. Well, I know from experience that even though I was single and wanting and desiring that relationship for so long that never showed up, I'm in one now and it's beautiful. And I know that the work pays off. So even though it seems like this fucking shit, sorry, I swear a lot, is not working, like I'm not getting anywhere, I'm still attracting the same people. You actually are. There's always movement underneath the surface. So really try not to look at like what's showing up in the moment, because that's only old energy and old thoughts and old beliefs. Just try your best to keep consistent. I think consistency, I just did a video on that on my Instagram. I think that's the key. Consistency. Take care of yourself regularly. And I promise you, those things that you desire, they're wanting to come into. May not always look like what we want, but, and again, the more work we do, the more we're able to just be present in what is. But yeah, I would say that change is possible, and love is definitely possible. Healthy relationships that support you and nurture you are totally available. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just writing down the work pays off. Healthy relationships are possible. That's good for me to know too.
And I
Um,
call it work because even like breath work, right? It
yeah,
feels like work sometimes. There's
it does feel like work.
sledging through the ugh, and it's tiring, and you got to be on your thoughts all the time, like to try and rewire and change the thoughts. But eventually, it does get a little bit easier. I mean,
Yeah,
what other job do we want than trying to have a better life? Like, It's
Yeah.
worthwhile work.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 different types of life to live, it seems from my perspective, just unconscious, reactive, what society values or your own values, and the result, maybe it would be different, so, yeah.
I love that.
Okay, so for those here live, hang on for just another couple minutes, but I'll close out the recording here. So thanks so much for those that were watching the replay. I hope you follow Jay. He's been such an impactful mentor in my life, and hope you enjoyed the interview. And we'll catch you soon. Let me go ahead and end that.